I see that I'm listed to speak about Kochi Metro. I'm not going to speak about Kochi Metro because I believe it's time the metro spoke for itself. The metro should speak to you as a passenger. And I think people in Kochi are tired of me banging on about the Kochi Metro at every venue. Also because I've moved on now to pursue other avenues in life. I'm also standing here with a lot of trepidation because this is the second day of back-to-back presentations. And I recall there's a book called Death by PowerPoint, which I'd encourage my colleagues to read. Secondly, also because I find that my young colleague who just preceded me has conveyed the message which I wanted to convey in a very nice way. So I had to put a different spin on it now. So rather than speaking about Kochi Metro, I thought since the spirit of this conclave is entrepreneurship, I'll try and speak about the trends which are emerging, especially in the urban and mobility space, and how we should tackle these trends, and what are the possibilities for young entrepreneurs like you here that can be tapped, and what are the risks and the dangers and challenges in front of you. And also I'll touch upon Kochi Metro incidentally as a venue for some of these disruptive changes that we are trying to bring about in the urban mobility space. So basically, I'd spend about 20 minutes on what are the trends in urban India and what are the crises coming up and what are the opportunities before us. As my young colleague Jayant said, the world is changing at a very dizzying phase. I was just reading a study. Of course, these numbers don't mean much because you can always contest them. It says that the pace of change is at 10x and the scale is at 300x. So the whole speed of the kind of environmental changes happening around us can be 3000x. I mean, of course you can contest these numbers, but the trends are scary. Secondly, the chairman of Alphabet, what's his name? Eric Schmidt, who was earlier the CEO of Google, has said that the amount of data that humanity has until 2003 now doubles every 48 hours. And in 2 years, it will double every 24 hours. I forget how many terabytes or exabytes of data that is. This is a kind of influx of information that the human race has to contend with. And another trend which is increasingly becoming visible is that the virtual world is getting a heft and a weight and a presence which is nearly as important as the physical world. For instance, a Twitter battle between two grown-up babies in North Korea and the USA really led to the USS carrier command being shifted to the South China Seas and pushed the world to the brink of a nuclear war. So the virtual world is now increasingly looming into our lives. It's getting into our emotional landscapes, into our dreams, our nightmares, our fiction, our novels, everything. And this is something that older people like me could never have dreamt about. And all these companies which young Jayant showed, I think 9 out of the 10 leading companies are dealing with the virtual world, all your Facebooks and your Amazons and so on. We know all that stuff. I also looked at a study, was it McKinsey, which said that out of the Fortune 500 companies, 70% will die in the next 30 years. So as he made the point, speed is much more important than size for entrepreneurs and for companies. How you predict the future and how you adapt to it is the single biggest factor for success in the years to come. Look at the stories of BlackBerry. Look at the stories of Nokia. Look at the stories of Sony Electronics and so on. These companies have fallen by the wayside because they failed to predict what was in store for them. I believe that when the iPhone came, the BlackBerry czars, the overlords said that this is a little gadget, it's a toy, it'll never get anywhere. It doesn't have any buttons on it, and look what's happening now. I think Apple has been overtaken by Amazon the other day, I think, but it's either number 1 or 2 in the world still. So the basic challenge before all of us is to alter our mindsets to cope with the speed and the scale and also the nature of change. The substance, the plasma of change is different now. It's a digital world and God knows what. Climate change, some unknown force is changing the world beneath our feet. So these are the kind of changes which you have to cope with in the years to come. So what are the key trends? Again, I won't go into it because Jayant has said it. One is the big data, the volume of data. Secondly, the data stream is no longer one way. In my childhood, the data flew from the teacher to the student, from the ruler to the ruled, from the people in authority to the ones below, from the priest to the laity, etc. Now, it's all data is flowing in all directions. User-generated content is driving this world. Why are cars being driven driverlessly? Why automate? All these things are happening because of the flow of data is now no longer one way. Of course, you have the Internet of Things, which is why so much of information is now being generated all the time. There's machine learning and robotics. Elon Musk had this famous fight with the Zuckerberg, where Musk said that machines are going to kill humanity. And Zuckerberg, of course, says, no, they are very benign. So, and Elon Musk is not a guy who can be taken lightly or his thoughts dismissed aside. So these are the kind of trends which are emerging in this world. RE, renewable energy is going to replace coal and oil as the energy of the future. So what's going to happen once the oil structure collapses to the Gulf? What's going to happen to states like Kerala, where 30% of the state GDP comes from the Gulf countries, etc.? Thoughts which you young entrepreneurs have to think about now. Everything is on mobile. It's time we stopped calling the mobile a mobile phone, because this is the instrument for empowerment, for especially for poor Indians, for people in poorer countries. It is an instrument for education, it's an instrument for social access, it's an instrument for making money at home. And India is going through the largest mobile revolution the world has seen. I think there are 400 million smartphones in this country now. I'm told in the next couple of years, every chap will have a smartphone in his hands. And the way, along with this digital identity that the government is providing, this potent combination is going to make every village in the country a center of economic activity. Moreover, the government is also, incidentally, in the next 2 years, under this NOFIN program, National Optic Fiber Network, every village in the country will have Wi-Fi access. Imagine what the Indian talent for Jugaad can do if you have this basic infrastructure in place, streaming into every corner of the country. This country is going to reclaim, I believe, its role of the 18th century as one of the leading commercial centers of the world and as a determiner of world trade once this power is put into the hands of the chap in the Orissa village or wherever it is. Then, of course, certain other changes are on-demand services, the Uberization of the world, the Airbnbization of the world, mobility as a service. Now, this Richard Taylor speaks about what is called the endowment bias. You want things because you are used to having things. Your dad had a car, he had a Maruti, you want a Innova or whatever it is, or your son wants an Audi, etc. The endowment bias. People want things because they're used to having it. We have to stop thinking on those lines, because I believe cars are the most inefficient machines in the world. They are used only 5% of the time, and normally there's only one person using it even in that 5%. It is time that the younger generation sitting here stopped thinking of the car as an asset to possess and as a service to be used. And this is going to happen in Kochi in the next 5 years, which is what Kochi Metro has also been trying to do. I'll come to that. So basically, we are moving into a consumer-centric economy where the customer can tweak the services that he requires, and also a sharing economy where instead of possessing objects, you share it with other people. A lot of negative trends also, climate change. Amitav Ghosh's book on climate change, what is it called? I really encourage every single one of you to read it. It's frightening, it's mind-boggling, and it really makes you lie awake and think about what's happening to this world. One of the problems about human thinking is what is called the bounded rationality problem. Our minds are only made to see what's in front of us, what's urgent, what's immediate, what's going to affect your family next day and next week, etc. And climate change, unfortunately, is a phenomenon outside the bounded rationality problem. It's somebody else's problem. It is 2 generations down the line. It's not. So one of the ways in which we need to cope with the world and to gain benefit from it, both for yourself and your families and for the world at large, is to enlarge your habits of thinking, to raise the perspective at which you look down at the world. Now, Rajesh has heard it, he must forgive me for saying it again. If you look at the evolution of the human being, what is the definition of a cancerous growth? It is something which eats its host. It's also something which destroys itself. Now, the human species, Homo sapiens, is one creature in the whole chain of evolution which destroys its host, which is the planet Earth. It is also the only species which is capable of organized destruction of each other, like the Second World War, etc. So viewed from an interplanetary perspective, it can well be said that Homo sapiens is a kind of cancerous evolution of the evolution tree started by Darwin, which was referred to by young Jayant. This is a thought which you must keep in your minds. Another thing is called insecticide. It's not the other insecticide it's not the flit. This refers to a study in Germany which just came out, which said that over 30 years, 70% of the insect species in Europe have vanished. What does that mean? It's not just the death of insects. If the insects die, the flowers don't pollinate, the vegetables will go away, the animals will die, and the kind of changes which will happen in the world as a result of the destruction of 70% of insects in Germany is something which, this is only a study in Germany, must be a similar trends worldwide. These are consequences which are outside our bounded rationality vision. And the guys who are going to succeed in future, and the planet is to have a better tomorrow, are the guys who are going to predict these kind of changes and make solutions for these problems which are looming in front of humanity. Of course, closing borders and closing minds. I don't have to tell you about it without getting into controversy. How borders are closing, the rise of American, imperialism again in the form of Mr. Trump, the closing of minds, alternative facts, variations of truth, etc., which hammered down 10 times are now believed to be true. And one of the things about the internet, one of the bad things about the internet is what is called confirmation bias. If you believe in a certain kind of worldview, your browsing will take you to only those sites where that worldview is again strengthened in your mind. And this is something which is leading to the polarization of humanity along various streams of ideology. Then, of course, pollution of the planet, the water stress, fundamentalism. My WhatsApp heading is Tantum religio potuit suadare malorum. It says in Latin, how much evil has organized religion wrought upon the world? Is it not true? Job losses from automation, which was gone into by my predecessor, cyber extremism, data capture. You're capturing data from people and using it for corporate purposes alone without their consent, fake news, mind control, and so on. Unknowns, etc. So these are the kind of negative trends that we have to prepare for now. Now, going on into, I don't want to go on too much about the universal setting. What's going to happen to India in the future? Now, 31% of Indians live in our cities. And by 2050, this will be half the population of India. 750 million people will be living in about 60 or 66 cities or so. This is more than the population of Europe. It's twice the population of the US. In a way, it's good because the rest of the country will be sort of free to breathe because a lot of the people will be in cities. But how we manage our cities is going to be one of the three central problems determining the fate of our country. And 70% of the economic contribution to the GDP comes from urban India. So how do you manage urbanization in a way which makes for a better quality of life, which makes for a better growth for the country, and which minimizes the impact on the environment are the challenges which we have to face in future. This is Edward Munch's famous painting about, it's called The Scream. So do we want to reach a scream situation in our urban planning in India? And this famous quote of Louis Carroll, which I throw everywhere, is if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there, and you end up in a scream situation. So instead of business as usual, what I'm trying to tell you is we have to do a lot of design rethinking around Indian cities, which we in KMRL were trying to do in a very small way in our city of Kochi. We have to stop in our tracks and see what we need to do differently to make these cities livable in future. So basically, focus on the important instead of the merely urgent. I told you about the bounded rationality problem. Focus on the invisible instead of what is just visible in front of your eyes. I mentioned the ecological Armageddon and the insecticide happening. And change your thinking habits and attitudes to cope with the rapidity of environmental change that is taking place. And the fragility of the planet and the reality of climate change have to be the basis for all urban design and planning. I was looking at some Economist magazine. It says China's planning vertical tree garden cities where every apartment block will have trees coming out of the sites. And the visualization was fantastic. I was also reading today that Delhi is now becoming the most polluted city on the planet, beating Beijing, because Beijing has started taking some very sensible measures 4 years back. In Beijing, they've started these stacks which capture the carbon and turns them into diamonds. So all this atmospheric thing which is killing the people in Delhi is now being captured in these stacks in parts of, this is only a pilot basis still, and the carbon is compressed into diamonds and being sold to people as, it may not be very expensive diamonds, but as token jewelry. So these are the kind of, somebody must be making money out of it if it works. So these are the kind of innovation that is required to convert the threats of the planet into a better life for other people and an income for yourself. So what are the key urban challenges? The water challenge, we know that. Look at the Periyar. The Periyar, when I was a child, I never seen it without water on it. Now about 3 times in a year it's full of water. Same with the Nila. Same with all the rivers. When we were children, in my days, every 1 kilometer there was a stream in Kerala where we used to go and fish. Can you show me a stream? In the heart of Trivandrum city, there was a stream in Vizhakkad where we used to go and catch those minnows. Can you imagine any city in Kerala, any town, where you can go and put your hands into a stream without coming upon piles of discarded garbage and plastic? Water. Energy. Energy, of course, is a little better for the Indian situation now because, finally we are turning energy self-sufficient. And also this, the huge solar and wind, etc., are really overturning the economics and dynamics. 230, 240 per unit. Even if you look at the levelized cost of it, it's quite compatible with the older sources of energy. So probably the energy thing is getting under control. Waste. Kerala has become an enormous dumping ground. I was telling the powers that be in Trivandrum the other day, the district of Nilgiris has done a wonderful thing. It's a hill district, and there are barriers at every entrance to the Nilgiris. So if you take in a bit of plastic into that Nilgiris district, 100 rupees you're fined per plastic they find in your car. Let's start in a small way by doing it in a place like in Idiki district where there are, again, similar barriers everywhere. And the reason, when I was Secretary of Urban Development about 20 years ago or 15 years ago, I tried to ban plastic. Immediately the plastic manufacturers went and created a big ruckus in Trivandrum and got that ban overturned. But if you do it in certain locales, it won't affect the industry so much, and start small. If you do some design rethinking around Kerala, the first thing you need to do is to settle this waste problem. And it's not unsolvable. I mean, there are experiments happening in William Island and other places. But government has to do some design rethinking around the future of the state of ours. Housing, of course, in the urban. If you're going to 750 million people in our cities, what kind of houses are you going to design for them, and how is that going to be sustainable and viable in the long run? And of course, mobility is what I want to spend the rest of the time with you about. Mobility is a key to everything else. If you have good mobility, some of the other problems like waste and housing, etc., will get sorted by itself. So basically, the mobility is the central nervous system of the city. If you have a good mobility system, the city will work, otherwise it won't. And some of the trends happening, I don't know whether I'm taking too much time, some of the trends happening are mobility on demand, transportation moving from an asset to a service, and the end of the age of ownership, which I mentioned earlier. The distinction between public and private transport is completely vanishing. Why do you want to set up KSRTCs and other public transport entities? The state of Florida is now what they're doing now in routes which are not viable, they're just subsidizing Uber instead of putting new buses into the system. So you get an Uber taxi there at 1/3 the cost which you have to pay for yourself. So these are the kind of solutions which are required in locations like India. So this distinction is vanishing. The entire consumer-centric mobility is around the mobile phone. Once the KMRL plans come to fruition in about 2 years' time, you can see the bus, where the bus is, where the metro is, where the water metro is, and you can, as one integrated system, you can book your ticket on it and you can plan your journey accordingly. And that will be the day when the guys in cars will leave their cars at home and get into the public transportation system. Then, of course, we are moving from the death of the internal combustion engine. It's already dying, to electric traction. Mr. Nitin Gadkari called the Society of Indian Automobile Manufacturers, CM, and told them that by 2030, India will be completely electric. First, those guys rebelled, typically in a very Luddite fashion. They want to protect their IC engines. But now better sense is prevailing, and all these automobile companies are now moving into electric traction. Autonomous cars may be coming a little late to India, driverless cars. I was just reading the other day, the city of Phoenix, Google has started driving cars on public streets without drivers. First, a big revolutionary thing has happened last week in the US, in Phoenix. Now you find cars without drivers moving along with the other streams of traffic. They become so confident about their machine learning skills that these cars can run. Probably it will come to India also very soon. Paperless unified ticketing, which we are doing in Kochi, our app is already out. Then, of course, reducing transactional mobility. If you can transact so much on the internet, you don't have to go to a place for conducting business. So mobility will enhance because of autonomous cars, mobility on demand, etc. But mobility for transactions, for Mr. Asani to go and pay his tax, etc., he need not go to a place. It can be done at home. So this kind of transactional mobility will come down. Of course, advanced transportation modes are happening, metro, trams. Hyperloop, people have set up a company in Delhi. I was really surprised to know. And they're planning a pilot project somewhere in North India, I forget where. So all these things are coming. High-speed rail is coming, HSR is coming. It may come to Kerala also very soon, which will reduce the whole of Kerala to one large suburb with consequences which are good or bad, I don't know. So basically, I won't take long. Just to put you up to speed on Kochi. Kochi Metro will eventually be the central nervous system of the city. Actually, Kochi starts in Angamali now. The name of Ernakulam is a historical residue. The urban conglomeration of Kochi starts from Angamali and goes to Arur and Tripunithura. All our project reports are more or less ready. At some point of time, we will have an MRTS spanning all the way from Angamali in the north to Arur and Tripunithura in the south. The water metro will bring 24% of the area of Greater Kochi into the city's economic life, especially the poorer communities living there. It will be one of the few places, 2 or 3 places in the world only are connected with a water metro, connecting to a metro, and Kochi is going to be one of those locations. And it's going to be more interconnected than, say, London or Istanbul, where the other kind of water metros are applying. So all this public transportation systems, taxis, e-autos will function as a single seamless system with a common timetable, common ticketing, and a centralized command and control, which is under your command also, because you can order the way these things are run. The Kochi One app, which is again on the Google Play Store, etc., will serve all your transportation as well as other needs. You can book your movie ticket on it, you can pay your taxes on it. The KSCB billing is going to come into the Kochi One app in a couple of weeks' time. So this will be something which all of you, whether you use the public transport or not, will necessarily have in your pockets. Okay, I'll skip all this, the models of the Kochi One app. I encourage you to try it. I think it's not come on the Apple one yet. The other one, Android has it. This is the kind of facilities you will get, city weather, hospital, etc., all the stuff. I think Finland has got one of the most modern such transportation apps. So we are trying to model ourselves on Helsinki, what the kind of things that they do. So what are the benefits of mobility in Indian cities? It inducts a business culture, a sense of promptitude into urban living. When things start running on time, when the trains start running on time, your life will be regulated on time. You will plan to meet somebody at 9:24, which is unheard of in India, but very common in, say, Stockholm or something. People's promptitude will enhance, and this is a very proven psychological fact. Then the psychological distances between places will change. When metro came to Paris, the places which were farther away on land became much closer because the metro got there faster. So the mental topography of you will change. The relative value add of places will also change. Some places will become more expensive, some will be less because they're not connected by the metro. You connect people with opportunity. You enhance working hours and leisure time for people. Women can go out and see a second show in the Lulu Mall and come back safely because the metro is a very safe form of transport. And then you have a bus connecting to it very nicely, which is again monitored on your phone, etc. Business spaces and commercial opportunities will abound around the metro system. Kochi Metro just put out its bid for a large number of commercial spaces around the metro system. Once the water metro comes, there'll be a lot of opportunities for tourism entrepreneurs to come into these around our 40 jetties where you can set up tourism-related things, etc. Because I believe that Kochi Water Metro will really raise the brand equity of Kochi into a global city. It will significantly enhance tourism arrivals. If done right, if projected right, and if pitched right. You reclaim the night. This is a movement among women. Women can go out at night. At 7 o'clock, women are scared to go out into the streets of India. And we want Kochi to reclaim the night. Women to go out safely alone. Investment in tourism benefits, global brand equity and civic pride. And it's a well-known fact, proven in psychology, that if you have a well-kept environment, your behavior ascends to that level. If you have a dirty environment, you start putting your stuff onto it. I think I really should be stopping now. I had a little aside on what are the infra challenges of doing an infra business. I will skip over it because of time factors. Kerala is a very, very difficult place to do infrastructure. Let me tell you that. I was very saddened to see that I was looking at the ease of doing business rankings today morning put out by the government of India. We are 26. A state like Kerala, which has human endowment and health endowment similar to Western United States in terms of child mortality and so on, we are 26 in India. And even more embarrassing, there was a news item that states which are far ahead in this list, like Andhra and Telangana, have been paired with the laggard states to handhold them. And I hope I don't know if the media in the room, please don't report it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Andhra and Telangana have been paired with Kerala to handhold us. I cannot think of a greater humiliation for the proud Mallu. What are you guys doing? Get down, Get down to it. We are one of the most advanced societies in the world. We have some of the best talent in the world. And we need an Andhra and Telangana to tell us how to do our business. See, yeah, okay. I stand corrected. 29 states altogether. Anyway, let the curtain of charity fall over that, as I say. So that's what it is. And this is something, one thing, I counted the number of stakeholders you have to handle for doing Kochi Metro. It's about 22 or 23 people, 23 sets of stakeholders. But one great thing about Kerala, I'll tell you, if you can convince people about the purity of your intentions, that you have no other agenda. Mallu is a very suspicious mind. If you have nothing else, that you have a clean heart, they'll all come along with you. We could acquire 600 parcels of land for Kochi Metro without an act, when the act was not there. Because people believed in the product. They believed that this metro would bring a better future for their children. And if you can rally the people around you, if you can get all these stakeholders together and convince them that you have a pure heart, this state, nothing can stop this progress of the state, and nothing can stop this project, as Kochi Metro has proven only the other day. Many other things also. Cochin Airport is there. I believe that the next generation of infra projects in Kerala will not have the same sad end which was seen in the 70s and 80s, because people have grown, people have seen the world. They don't think that value capture is a bad word anymore. They don't think value addition is something we sneezed at. I felt very sad, in the Kochi Metro, we have taken, instead of giving all the customer-facing services to companies, European companies which other metros do, we decided to give it to poor women coming through Kudumbashree. So I gathered some of them together and found that the women handling my ticketing, 50% of them are engineering graduates. Another 20% are MBAs, not from IIMs or anything, but still they're MBAs. And they're coming and standing in our metro stations because they have no other opportunity. I asked one of these girls, why don't you go, you're an electronic engineer, why don't you go and work in Bangalore? He said, rather than do a body shop thing for 20,000 rupees in Bangalore and then commute in some faraway place, I'd much rather get this 10,000 rupees or 12,000 rupees that we give them and work out of home and have the respectability of working for Kochi Metro. So this is the tragedy of Kerala. I'm going to skip all this. Okay. How do you go back then? Then you're stuck with me. So what are the couple of lessons which I learned in my last 5 years may be useful to you? Spend a lot of time, spend a lot of money and resources on project planning. One of the bane of Indian businesses and infra projects is, if you're getting a loan, you patch together a project report and then go and get into implementation issues. In India, we spend 2% of the project costs on project preparation and planning. In the US, it's 8 to 10%. The World Bank has got a fantastic paradigm, which I have handled a number of these projects. They spend 2 years planning a project, which can be executed in 2 years' time. That's the amount of time they take in planning, mid-course corrections. The Kochi Metro's project report was done, not in a very profound manner, I would say. But because of that, we have to do a large number of mid-course corrections in terms of the technology, moving from an AC system to a DC system, all that kind of stuff. So one of the learnings that I've had is that spend a lot of time in the report and in the planning. And if you don't do that, it'll come back and bite your bottom line one of these days. Then, of course, very important in Kerala, you have to build alignment across all levels of government. From the panchayat councillor to the head of the government of the state, you have to keep them on the same page. Anybody can come and obstruct you. Anybody, remember that. But the plus side of that is that once people are convinced that you're doing a good thing, they will be the ones to come and defend you and fight for you. In the beginning, we had a lot of environmental problems in Kochi, frankly. In a metro depot in Muttam, people started writing stories saying that it's a waterlogged area, you're filling it up. I mean, that's true also. But then we did one thing. We took all the rabid environmentalists, I wouldn't use the word rabid, sorry, all the fervent environmentalists of this area who come on TV in the evening, prime time, and made an environmental group and gave the problems to them and said, these are our problems, you solve them for us. And that worked wonderfully. They came out with sensible suggestions. They also had their egos massaged. And they were the ones who finally found out environmentally friendly solutions for us. So these ensure political bipartisanship. You have to ensure that the political formations of the state, the ruling party and the opposition, are all aligned around your objectives. Ensure community acceptance. Look what's happening to that, what's that place, Vipin, that gas tanks. And one of the problems about major infrastructure projects is what I'd call the neighborhood effect. We have a large power plant like Kudankulam. There are no benefits to the immediate community. All the benefits will flow 200 kilometers away or 1,000 kilometers away. And this is a problem which you have to tackle for larger projects and businesses. You have to ensure that the neighborhood, Mr. Dominic has a wonderful model which I really envy, that he gets all the local community, the employment in his projects, and so they are all bound very well. I think he pioneered this model in Kerala. Every private and public entrepreneur would do well to remember this. You have to negate the neighborhood effect. When you're setting up a hotel or something, it's not just a source for making money off German tourists. It's also a source for flowing back some of that value add back into the community. Basically, in one sentence, you have to ensure a buy-in for all the participants in this charade. This purity of intention thing I mentioned, ensure the land issue is sorted out. The land pressures on Kerala are becoming insane. So never go into a project where land issues remain. I don't want to go into specific examples. They're abounding from Kasaragod to Trivandrum. The land issue has to be sorted out, and we had a lot of hairy times in building the metro because at critical points of time, somebody would not give us land. I don't want to mention, these are all in the papers, etc. So we really had to struggle and get into all kinds of newspaper frontline headlines, etc. That's something which has to be done. Check if the legal architecture is robust. Are the revenue streams and the tariff regime secured by law and also by popular consent? In Kerala, it's not enough that your toll rates are protected by law. It also has to be protected by popular consent, because you build a road and put a toll, after some time the neighborhood will come and object saying, no, you can't toll it anymore. So that model is not working in Kerala. Build and toll, all the BOT, etc. are all coming to a very sorry end because of that. And also, most importantly, is there any threat from emerging new business models and new technologies? Like the Uberization, the sharing economy, is it going to come and overtake your business and kill it? Is something which you have to remember. Quickly, again, for young entrepreneurs, what are the business opportunities around this mobility paradigm of Kochi? One is we are doing something called transit-oriented development. Go to our website and take a look at it, which basically means that you're developing, in plain English, you're developing areas around each metro station in a walkable distance where all the things you need for a daily living are available there itself in terms of our spaces, etc. There are going to be tourism opportunities, there are going to be vending opportunities, booksellers, pharmacists, etc., small-time businesses in commercial spaces. There are click and collect projects where you can order online and collect it in our spaces we are dedicating in our metro stations. People have come to us now, we're going to start it very soon. This Kochi One app will have a click and collect space where you're going to work, you can order your groceries and be delivered to you at the station where you get off. There are business models woven into the Kochi One card and Kochi One app. I'd encourage you to explore it. Nighttime shopping is going to open out in a big way once this whole seamless architecture is in place. If people move out into the streets at night, you have to monetize those people. Shops can stay open later. We really wanted to make MG Road one of those arcades. I know some of you still haven't agreed with me, but it'll happen one day, and that'll really bring economic vitality to that part of town. Of course, the city's brand equity will rise. All of us will benefit from an ascent of the city, Kochi's brand equity to global standards. I've just come back from some seminar in the US. I was surprised to learn that all those people in the East Coast have read about what's happening to the city of Kochi, and they've been asking so many curious questions. So we're getting known. This investment of about 10,000 crores is reaping benefits which we could not think of. Unimagined consequences are happening worldwide. Kochi is anyway one of the most beautiful cities in the world. I believe it's got the best natural harbor in the world, the most beautiful one. And it's time we market it globally with attendant benefits for all of us. So basically, looking into the future, only the dreamers will win. Use your imagination for getting the big picture. For the big picture, you have to use your imagination. For getting there, you have to use your intelligence. If you start using your intelligence for directional thinking, you will never get anywhere. There are three types of thinking. One is the coping thinking on a day-to-day basis. One is the tactical thinking. Next week, what will I do? How do I get my son into an IIT? And then there's a directional thinking. Which way am I going? For businesses and for people, you have to use your imagination for directional thinking and then use your intelligence for navigating them. That's the lesson I want to convey. Examples. Dreaming about connecting people. One chap in a Harvard dorm, and look where he is now, Facebook. Dreaming about mobility on call, Uber and Lyft. Demand and supply matching in space, Airbnb. matching goods and services, Amazon. Jeff Bezos has become the most richest guy in the world, overtaking everybody else, $80 billion or something. What does he have? He only has a few servers and some warehouses. So he's just matching demand and supply. So the three questions we need to ask are, how are our needs going to change? How are our services going to change? And what are people's new aspirations? What does the new generation want? What are they aspiring for? And these are the questions in which lie embedded the success or failure of entrepreneurs of tomorrow. I'm going to skip all this, sorry. So just to summarize, stop in our tracks, stop what we are doing, and do some design rethinking. Go back to the drawing board and do some directional thinking. What do you want to give people? What do you want to give the planet? And also let me tell you, for the next generation, solutions which make money alone will not work. There's something, what is it called, impact investing. Investments which impact people, investments which impact the planet, the quality of life, the quality of people who have no access to bread and water. These are the investments which are going to be last in future. The old age of robber capitalism, of crony capitalism, of plunderers, all that is gone, going. Because the planet has become a crowded and chaotic place. Unless you have purity of intent, your business will never sustain. Secondly, harness technological change, be mindful of ecological impact. Move from an output orientation, that buying cars and hiring it to people won't work anymore. Car hire agencies like Hertz are gone. Hertz and Avis and all are gone in the next couple of years. Move to an outcome orientation. Mobility is the job. Not building a metro is only a tool. What is the goal of Kochi Metro, when the corporate vision when I came there, was building and running a good metro. We changed it. And now KMRL's vision is connecting people and places, and connecting people and opportunity. So move to an outcome orientation, migrate to a shared economy, and disintermediation. Because of the power of the internet and the fact that info flows all the way around, not from the teacher to the learned, a lot of intermediate systems and organizations and power structures are getting disintermediate. You can now access the client directly. You can get the client's feedback directly. Somebody was mentioning just now, Jayant was mentioning about how this happens in some space. So disintermediation is a great opportunity for us to work out new business models, and most of all, enable the Indian jugaad to work. We get around everything. We are a country where we demonetized all our notes and they all came promptly back into the system. In Bombay, people made money running business models, converting some rich guy's cash into a bank account. And this is the power of the febrile and fertile Indian mind. And this is what will be the saving of the country. And once you have the power of the net, connectivity in every village, I believe firmly that the next generation is going to be what it was in the 17th century, with India leading the world's economic pack. I think we should really put a guillotine to things now. Just to close this on a nice note, again, some metro quotes Rajesh wanted. Not all those who wander are lost, from Tolkien. It's there on our metro stations. We want Kochi Metro to be the most culture-rich metro in the world. Some Firang fellow came and said that already. We want to beat London Underground in that. Every metro is going to be chock full of Malayalam, Sanskrit, Hindi, and English literature. Another one, all that we see or seem is but a dream within a dream. A very dreamy quote. The second, the famous quote by Pascal, is a touch romantic for a metro, I know, but be that as it may. There's also a lovely quote: time is too slow for those who wait, too swift for those who fear, too long for those who grieve, too short for those who rejoice, but for those who love, time is eternity. And on that note, I will close. Thank you.
So, may I request you to please stay on stage, and may we also request you to take a couple of questions. You're quite a popular man, and
That's over. That story is over.
the story may be over, but then there are people who want to ask you questions. I know we haven't been following this pattern for the keynote addresses, but then the floor is open for 3 questions. We have time for 3 questions. Please raise your hand so that the volunteer can reach you with a microphone. Those who are seated in the back rows, I request you to...
That was a great talk. And I'm George, Dr. George.
Yeah, doctor.
It was fantastic, the vision you've given. Why wouldn't a few of you IAS people quit service and start a few entrepreneurial companies and maybe take on waste management and make Cochin the cleanest city in India?
I
I
wish.
think,
I
you
wish.
know, and legalize marijuana as well. You'll find it a fantastic super city. Medical marijuana is everywhere allowed. If alcohol can be allowed, why not?
But jokes apart, I think this is one thing which governments can't alone do this. Government and civil society and businesses have to work on this. Kerala is one of the most beautiful locations on the planet. And look what we're doing to it now. It's a plastic dump from end to end. Every stream is clogged. Something right, do some design rethinking. Sit down and list out what you need to do first. We need to build an ecosystem around the single objective of cleaning up the state. We are great at campaigns. We did the Sacharata campaign, we did this campaign, the vaccination campaign. The whole of Kerala should get out into a campaign mode and do one-stroke cleaning of everything. We should also let people sponsor various reaches of river and lake, etc. Give one small lake to a school NSS, give one to the Rotary, 1 kilometer of river to some political party, whoever it is, and say, this is your reach, and you can put up your boards there, and the Mallu pride will ensure that the Kerala is cleaned up. So that kind of a multi-stakeholder campaign is the only way that we can clean up our lovely state.
Sir,
Hi, sir.
the metro development, along with that, the townships are getting beautified. But my concern about the private parking facilities, is it really planned for the parking, the private parking, along with the town planning?
See, there are two things. One, we already acquired people's best land for the metro. It's heart-rending. You have 40 cents of land, you take away the best 20 cents facing the road for the metro. We want to minimize land acquisition, which is why the parking spaces are so few. And secondly, once our grand unified plan comes into being, there is no need to get cars into the center of the city. It's time for discouraging people from moving around in the city in cars. It's already happening because if you take a car and go into the city, you have to wait in 5 traffic lights. So modern metros are not designed to have cars in the intermediate system. It makes for a short-term pain, but in the long run, there's going to be gain. But having said all that, we are planning, we have large tracts of land in Alva, in Edapalli, etc. We are planning multi-level parking in a public-private partnership mode. I think the bids are going to go out now. You can only park vertically in Kochi. There's no land for any other parking.
Sir, actually in front of the children's park is also, the gardening is happening. So is it possible to manage that?
You mean we are doing our walkway?
Yeah, walkways.
The idea is to discourage people from parking in front of Subhash Bose Park. But you are going to have a world-class walkway, believe me. From the boat jetty onto the Maharaja station, it's like a walkway, the likes of which you've not seen before. We did a small pilot in front of near Pannambali, and the number of people who use it are, so many. I think it's given more delight to the city than the metro itself. And just wait till our walkway comes. It's a world-class design. Once it comes, you will stop cribbing about the reduction in parking spaces.
Hi, sir. Hi, sir.
My question is on smart cities. The government, the union government has been talking a lot about this. So 3.5 years, where are we on this? And do you think India, do we have the competency to deliver this? Because generally, the metro, which ideally should have been, say, 20, 30 years by now, we are talking about it in Nagpur, Jaipur, Kochi, Bangalore and all that. So smart cities, we have started talking about it now. Do you think we have the competency to
See,
actually...
the smart city is a very tough project to implement. It's well designed because historically, municipal administration has been a pattern set by the British. It's not changed much. What happens in the municipal administration system in India is that the money available to a city is apportioned among the councils and the wards. So you can't do any big ticket projects because of the way the laws are structured in this country. And smart city was designed to get over it by bringing in private capital also and to do corporate level interventions in a city, like setting up a huge transport infrastructure, etc., huge water supply schemes, etc. Now, Kerala, we are late adapters to PPPs, frankly. Government working with private sector is still not a very common feature in the state. That's one challenge. Second challenge of smart city is that all the sectors have to progress uniformly. The water authorities projects and the KSAB project and the transport project all have to move at an even pace. And again, we are not the masters of multi-departmental working in unison. We are still laggards as compared to some other states. So these are the two challenges smart city is facing in India. Having said that, the IoT and big data are the answer to many of the problems of Indian cities for mobility, waste management, safety, crime, etc. And it's high time we did it. Despite being smart city is one of the toughest projects that government has ever invented, but I think time has come and we should get down to do it. Let me also tell you, smart city cannot be done by government alone. It needs a city behind it. The voice of Kochi should push for smart city, otherwise it's not going to happen.